Welcome to Chapter 12, Surface Areas and Volumes. Here we take the solids you already know, the cylinder, cone, sphere and hemisphere, and stick them together into everyday shapes like a toy top, an ice cream cone, a medicine capsule and a water tank. You learn one careful rule for surface area. Add only the faces you can still see and touch, never the hidden join. You learn the easy rule for volume, just add the volumes of the pieces. And you'll melt one solid and recast it as another, where the volume never changes. We'll use pi as 22/7 wherever the textbook does, working every example and exercise slowly, before finishing with exam practice.
In the darkness of the unknown, a stuck student finds their way, the greatest minds, and turn confusion into brilliance.
Look around you for a moment. A grain silo, the tip of a sharpened pencil, an ice cream cone, a medicine capsule, hardly anything in the real world is a single clean solid. Almost every object is really just a few basic solids stuck together. And that is the good news, because it means we never need a new formula for the whole strange shape. We only ever need the handful of solids we already know. So let's meet our two building blocks on screen. Here on the left is a cylinder, a round tube with two flat circular ends. And here on the right is a cone, a circular base that tapers up to a single point, the apex. Keep your eye on these two. Almost everything in this whole chapter is built out of them. Now watch what happens when we slide the cone up and set it down right on top of the cylinder. See how the cone's circular base lands exactly on the cylinder's circular top. Because we gave them the same radius, they match perfectly and snap together into one single combined solid. That is a grain silo, or if you flip it in your mind, an ice cream cone with a rounded tube below. Notice the crucial thing. Where the cone sits on the cylinder, two flat circles are now pressed face to face, sealed shut inside the solid. Hold that thought. It is about to become the key to the whole idea of surface area for combinations. So how do we find the surface area of this combined solid? Here is the natural first guess a student makes. Just add the whole surface area of the cone to the whole surface area of the cylinder. But watch, that would be wrong, and it is worth understanding exactly why. Surface area means the area of the skin you could actually paint. But those two circles at the joint, pressed face to face, are trapped deep inside the solid now. No paintbrush can ever reach them. They are not skin anymore. So the rule is this: to find the surface area of a combination, add up the pieces, but count only the faces that are exposed to the outside. See the red outline tracing only the outer skin, the cone's slope, the cylinder's wall, the bottom. The buried joint has vanished from the surface. Only the outer skin counts. But let's step back and ask a deeper question that most students never stop to ask. What is surface area, really? And where do these formulas we memorize even come from? Here is the beautiful answer. Surface area is simply the flattened skin of the solid. Imagine taking a pair of scissors, cutting the skin, and laying it out perfectly flat on a table. Whatever flat shape you get, its ordinary area is the surface area. The formula is never a magic spell to memorize, it is just the area of that flattened shape, written down. Let's prove it to ourselves. Take the cylinder on screen, and let's peel it open piece by piece. First the curved side, the label on a tin. Slit it straight down and unroll it, and watch it flatten into a plain rectangle. Now here is the clever part. What are the sides of that rectangle? The height of the rectangle is obviously just the cylinder's height h, nothing changed there. But think about the width. The width is however far your finger travels as it goes all the way around the circular rim, once, back to where it started. That distance is the circumference of the circle, and we learned the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. So this rectangle is 2 pi r wide and h tall. That is why the curved surface works out the way it does. It is genuinely just a rectangle in disguise. But the curved wall isn't the whole skin, is it? A closed tin also has two flat lids, the top and the bottom. Pop them off and here they are, two plain circles, each one of radius r. And the area of a circle we already know from the last chapter, it is pi r squared. So the two caps together are just pi r squared plus pi r squared. Nothing new to learn, we are only reusing the circle area we already trust. Now let's just collect what we found. The curved surface area is the area of that rectangle, width times height, 2 pi r times h. That is where CSA equals to pi r h comes from. It was a rectangle all along. And the total surface area is the curved part plus the two caps, 2 pi r h, plus 2 lots of pi r squared. That is the whole formula, and notice we never memorized anything, we just cut the solid open and measured the flat pieces. The formula is nothing but the picture, written down. Every surface area formula in this chapter is learned exactly this same way. Now let's turn from the skin to the filling, from surface area to volume, how much a solid can actually hold. Here is one of the most beautiful facts in the whole chapter, and I want you to see it rather than just believe it. On the right is a cylinder, on the left a cone. But look carefully, I have made them share the exact same circular base and the exact same height. Same width, same tallness. The only difference is that the cone tapers to a point while the cylinder stays full and straight. So here is the question to hold in your mind. How much does the skinny pointed cone hold compared to the fat full cylinder? Take a guess before we pour. Most people guess a half. Let's find out. Let's fill the cone right up to the brim with water and carefully pour it into the empty cylinder. Watch the level. It rises only to about here, just 1/3 of the way up. Not a half, as most of us guessed. One coneful barely fills 1/3 of the cylinder. So the cylinder is still mostly empty. Let's fill the cone again and pour a second coneful in. The level climbs, and now the water reaches 2/3 of the way up. 2 cones, 2/3 full. Do you see the pattern forming? One more. Fill the cone a 3rd time and pour it in. And there it is, the water reaches exactly the top, not a drop over, not a drop short. It took precisely 3 conefuls to fill one cylinder of the same base and height. 3 cones make one cylinder. And that is the whole beautiful idea, seen with our own eyes. A cone of the same base and the same height holds exactly 1/3 of what the cylinder holds, never a half. So if the cylinder's volume is pi r squared h, the cone must be 1/3 of that. That is where the 1/3 in the cone formula comes from. It is not an arbitrary number someone invented. It is the 3 pours we just watched. The cone's volume is 1/3 pi r squared h. Remember the pouring and you will never lose that 1/3 again. So there it is, the entire chapter distilled into 3 ideas you now understand, not just memorized. 1. When you combine solids, you add only the outer surfaces, because the faces buried at the joint are no longer skin. 2. Surface area is nothing mysterious, it is simply the net, the skin unrolled flat, so every formula is just a rectangle or a circle in disguise. And 3. A cone is exactly one-third of its cylinder, which is why that one-third lies in the cone's volume. Carry these 3 pictures with you and every problem in this chapter becomes a matter of reading the shape, not recalling a formula. Now let's put them to work on every single example and exercise. Now let's work through the 7 examples together, and I promise to take each one slowly. My goal isn't just to reach the answer, it's that you understand why every single step is there, so that when you face a fresh problem in the exam you can rebuild the reasoning yourself. Watch how each solid on screen is really a cylinder, cone, hemisphere or cube in disguise, joined or scooped. And a small housekeeping note, wherever the book uses pi as 22/7, we will too, because it makes the arithmetic come out clean. The top on screen is a cone sitting on a hemisphere, and since we are coloring, only the outside skin matters, never anything sealed inside. Let's set up first, because getting the picture right is half the battle. Look at the top on screen, it's a cone pointing up, sitting on a rounded hemisphere below. Rashid colors the outside, so the area is the cone's curved slope plus the hemisphere's curved dome. Notice what we leave out, the flat circle where the cone meets the hemisphere is buried inside where they join, so no paint ever reaches it. That's the combination rule in action, exposed curved surfaces only. Now let's gather our numbers. We are told the diameter is 3.5, but every formula here wants the radius, so we halve it to get 1.75. And here's the neat part, the cone and the hemisphere are stacked on the same circle, so they share this one radius, that's why we only compute it once. The total height, 5, is measured from the very bottom to the tip. But that height is split between 2 solids. A hemisphere is a solid half ball, so its own height, from its flat face up to its dome, is exactly its radius, 1.75. Whatever height is left over must belong to the cone, so the cone's height is 5 minus that radius, 3.25. Before we can use the cone's surface formula, we hit a subtlety students often miss. The paint runs down the slanted side of the cone, not straight down the middle, so we need the slant height L, the length of that slope, not the vertical height H. And where does slant height come from? Picture the right triangle inside the cone, the vertical height is one leg, the base radius is the other, and the slope is the hypotenuse. So Pythagoras gives L as the square root of r squared plus h squared. Work that square root out, 1.75 squared plus 3.25 squared, all under the root, and it comes to about 3.7, rounding just as the book does. That's our slope length, ready for the surface formula. Now the hemisphere. Its curved surface is 2 pi r squared. Where does that come from? A full sphere's surface is 4 pi r squared, and a hemisphere is exactly half a sphere, so its curved part is half of 4, which is 2 pi r squared. Substitute our radius and pi as 22/7. For the cone, the curved surface is pi rl. Think of it as the radius times the slope, scaled by pi. We now have both pieces it needs, the radius 1.75 and the slant height 3.7 we just found. Substitute them in. Now we add the 2 curved areas. Here's a tidy shortcut, both pieces carry the common factor pi r, so we can pull it out front and just add what's left inside the bracket, 2R from the hemisphere and L from the cone. Less arithmetic, fewer slips. Finish the arithmetic, add inside the bracket, then multiply by pi r, and we land on the area Rashid has to color, about 39.6 square centimeters. So here's the takeaway to carry forward. For any combined solid we add only the exposed curved surfaces. That flat circle where the cone meets the hemisphere is trapped inside the join, so it is never painted and never counted. Whenever you meet a combination, pause and ask, which faces are actually on the outside? That dome on top of the cube quietly covers a circle of the cube's face, so we lose a flat circle but gain a curved dome. Watch how those two changes almost cancel. Let's think about how the block was built, because that's the cleanest way to track the surface. Start with the complete cube on screen, all 6 faces bare. Now we glue a hemisphere onto the top face. 2 things happen at once. The circle of top face under the dome gets covered, so it's no longer skin, but the curved dome is now exposed, so it becomes new skin. So our plan is, whole cube, subtract that hidden circle, add the dome. First the cube by itself. A cube has 6 identical square faces, and each face is edge times edge, 5 squared, 25. 6 of them give 150 square centimeters. That's our starting skin before the dome touches anything. The dome's measurements come next. Its diameter is 4.2, and as always the formulas want the radius, so we halve it to 2.1. Keep that number, it's used twice, once for the circle we remove and once for the dome we add. Now the subtraction. Where the flat base of the hemisphere presses onto the cube, it seals off a circle of the top face. That circle can never be seen or painted, so we take away its area, pi r squared, from the cube's surface. And the addition. In place of that flat circle we've now got a curved dome bulging out into the open air, so we add the hemisphere's curved surface to pi r squared. Notice we add only the curved part, the flat base isn't counted, it's the very circle we just hid. Here's the lovely simplification. We took away 1 pi r squared and added to pi r squared, so on balance the surface changes by just plus 1 pi r squared. In other words, fixing a hemisphere on a flat face always adds exactly 1 pi r squared, a shortcut worth remembering. So substitute pi as 22/7 times the radius 2.1 squared added onto 150. Evaluate that pi r squared, it works out to 13.86 and added to the cube's 150 for the total surface area. The insight here is worth banking. Attaching a hemisphere trades 1 flat circle for 1 curved dome, so the surface grows by exactly 1 pi r squared, not by the whole hemisphere, and certainly not by the whole sphere. Whenever a dome sits on a flat face, reach straight for that plus 1 pi r squared. This rocket has a twist most don't. The cone is fatter than the cylinder below it, so a ring of the cone's base peeks out all the way round. Miss that ring and the whole answer is wrong. This one rewards careful setup, so let's list every dimension before we touch a formula. The unusual thing here, and the whole trick of the problem, is that the cone and the cylinder do not share a radius. The cone's base radius is 2.5, from its 5 cm diameter, while the cylinder is thinner at 1.5. Keep those two radii clearly apart in your mind. The total height is 26 and the conical tip is 6 of that, so whatever's left is the cylinder's body, 26 minus 6, 20 centimeters tall. The cone is painted along its slope, so we need its slant height, not its vertical 6. Pythagoras on the cone's own radius 2.5 and height 6 gives the hypotenuse of that inner triangle, 6.5 centimeters. Now the orange, which is the cone. Its curved slope is pi r cone L, but here's the ring we mustn't forget. Because the cone is wider than the cylinder underneath, the cone's base doesn't fully rest on the cylinder, an outer ring of it hangs over into the open air and must be painted orange too. That ring is the cone's full base circle minus the smaller circle covered by the cylinder, pi r cone squared minus pi r cyl squared. Substitute the numbers, keeping the shared pi, here 3.14, out front, and just work the bracket, 2.5 times 6.5 for the slope, plus 2.5 squared, minus 1.5 squared for that visible ring. Evaluate the bracket to 20.25, then multiply by pi for the orange area, about 63.59 square centimeters. Now the yellow, the cylinder. That's its curved wall, to pi r cyl h, plus just one base circle. Why only one? Read the solid, the bottom rests on the table so it's the one visible open base, while the top is hidden up inside the cone. So the cylinder shows its wall and its single bottom circle. Factor pi r cyl out of both terms to keep it tidy, leaving 2h plus r inside, 2 times 20 is 40, plus the radius 1.5. Multiply through for the yellow area, about 195.5 square centimeters. The lesson to keep: when joint solids have different radii, the wider one leaves a visible ring that still counts as surface. So never assume the join hides a full circle. Always look at the figure and ask which flat parts are genuinely still exposed. This bird bath has a ball scooped into its top, so instead of a flat lid we get a curved hollow. Watch how a hollow counts as surface just like a bump does. Let's picture the surface a bird actually touches. There's the cylinder's curved outer wall running all the way up, and then, scooped into the top, a hemispherical ball the water sits in. The ball is curved surface too, just facing inward. Both the cylinder and the ball share the one radius, 30. So the total is the cylinder's curved wall plus the hemisphere's curved ball. Before any formula, a habit that saves marks, check the units agree. The height is given in meters but the radius in centimeters, and you can never mix them. Let's convert the height. 1.45 meters is 145 centimeters, so now everything is in centimeters together. The cylinder's curved wall is to pi rh. Remember, that's the label rectangle we unrolled, circumference to pi r times the height h. The scooped ball is a hemisphere's curved surface, to pi r squared, half of a sphere's 4 pi r squared. Notice we count no flat top circle at all, because the top isn't flat, it's been hollowed into this ball. Add the wall and the ball, and since both carry to pi r we can factor it out, leaving simply h plus r inside the bracket. Cleaner to compute, harder to slip. Substitute pi as 22/7, radius 30, and h plus r as 145 plus 30. Multiply it all out and we get 33,000 square centimeters. A big number, because it's in the small unit of square centimeters. Let's give the answer in square meters. Here's the point students trip on. 1 square meter is 100 centimeters by 100, which is 10,000 square centimeters, not 100. So we divide by 10,000, giving 3.3 square meters. 2 lessons here. First, a depression removes a flat lid but adds a curved surface, so we count the ball, never a top circle. A hollow is still skin. And second, always fix the units before you start, and remember area conversions square the factor, 10,000, not 100, square centimeters to the square meter. Picture a barn, a box with a half-pipe roof laid on top. Unlike surfaces, volumes have no hidden phase subtlety, they simply add. Then whatever solid sits inside pushes air out. Here's a relief after all those surface problems. Volume of a combination is just the sum of the pieces, with no worry about hidden faces. The space inside to join solids is simply the space of one plus the space of the other. So the shed's total air is the box-shaped cuboid plus the half-cylinder roof lying on top. Take the cuboid first. Its volume is simply length times breadth times height, 15 by 7 by 8, which is 840 cubic meters of boxy air. Now read the roof carefully of the shape. It's a cylinder cut in half lengthways, lying along the 15-meter length like a half-pipe. Its diameter spans the 7-meter width of the shed, so its radius is half of that, 3.5, and its length is the full 15. A full cylinder's volume is pi r squared times its length. This roof is only half a cylinder, so we take half of that. Substitute pi as 22 over 7, radius 3.5 squared, length 15. Work it through and the roof holds 288.75 cubic meters of air. Add the box and the roof and we have the total air an empty shed would hold, 1,128.75 cubic meters. But the shed isn't empty. 20 workers stand inside, each taking up 0.08 cubic meters, so together they occupy 20 times that, 1.6 cubic meters. Now the key idea for air remaining, every solid body inside displaces air, pushing it out. So we subtract both the machinery, 300, and the workers, 1.6, from the shed's total space. Do the subtraction and the breathable air actually left is 827.15 cubic meters. So the whole shape of the reasoning, for a combination, volumes just add, no hidden phase fuss like surface area has, and anything solid sitting inside simply subtracts its own volume from the air. Build up the total space, then take away what's occupying it. That raised bottom bulging up into the glass quietly steals some of your drink. Apparent is what it looks like it holds, actual is what it really does, the gap is the cheat. The two words in the question are the whole idea, so let's pin them down. Apparent capacity is what the glass looks like it holds if you ignore the shaped bottom, a full straight cylinder. Actual capacity is the real drink, which is that cylinder minus the hemisphere that bulges up into it from below and takes up room. So actual equals cylinder minus hemisphere. The inner diameter is 5 centimeters, inner, because it's the drink inside we care about, so the radius is half, 2.5. Apparent capacity first, the whole cylinder as if the base were flat, pi r squared h, substitute pi as 3.14, radius 2.5 squared, height 10. That evaluates to 196.25 cubic centimeters, the drink the glass pretends to offer. Now the sneaky part. The raised bottom is a hemisphere pushing up into the glass, and a hemisphere's volume is 2/3 pi r cubed, half of a sphere's 4/3 pi r cubed. That solid dome occupies space where drink would otherwise be. Evaluated, the bulge is about 32.71 cubic centimeters of stolen space. Subtract that bulge from the apparent capacity, because that's exactly the drink the raised bottom has displaced. Finish the subtraction, the glass really holds only about 163.54 cubic centimeters. The principle to carry away, a solid pushed into a container reduces its capacity by exactly its own volume, no more, no less. That's the physics behind the trick bottom, and it's the same displacement idea we'll use whenever objects go into liquid. Imagine slipping the toy into the tightest cylindrical tin that just fits it. The empty gap left around the toy is the surprise we're chasing. Let's read the toy on screen, a rounded hemisphere at the bottom with a cone sitting on top, like a spinning top. Its volume is simply the two pieces added. Both parts are stacked on the same circle, so they share one radius, half the base diameter of 4, which is 2 centimeters. The hemisphere's volume is 2/3 pi r cubed, half of a full sphere's 4/3 pi r cubed. Substitute pi 3.14 and r cubed as 2 cubed, 8. The cone's volume is 1/3 pi r squared h. Remember the 3 pores, that's where the 1/3 lies. Its height is given as 2, same as its radius here. Add the hemisphere and the cone for the whole toy, it comes to 25.12 cubic centimeters. Hold on to that number, we'll need it again. Now the circumscribing cylinder, the tightest tin that just wraps the toy. Its radius must match the toy's widest part, so radius 2. And its height must run from the flat bottom of the hemisphere up to the cone's tip, that's the hemisphere's radius, 2, plus the cone's height, 2, 4 centimeters tall. The cylinder's volume is the full pi r squared h, no thirds, it's a straight tin. Radius 2 squared, height 4, times pi gives 50.24 cubic centimeters. The empty gap around the toy is whatever the tin holds minus what the toy fills, cylinder minus toy. Finish the subtraction. The leftover space is 25.12, which, remarkably, is exactly the toy's own volume. The toy fills precisely half its tin. The general idea worth keeping. The leftover space around any solid packed inside a cylinder is just the cylinder's volume minus the solid's container minus contents. Here it happens to come out equal to the toy itself, a neat coincidence, but the method works for any snug fit. Now let's do every exercise question together, each one broken into small, clear steps with the reasoning spoken aloud, no question left as practice. Notice the two exercises have very different flavors. Exercise 12.1 is entirely about surface areas, where we forever ask which faces are exposed and which are hidden at a joint. Exercise 12.2 is entirely about volumes, where pieces simply add, and the big idea is that melting, recasting, or immersing never changes the total volume. Unless a question tells us otherwise, we'll take pi as 22/7. Two dice glued face to face make a domino, one long box. But watch what happens to the two faces that get glued together. We're given each cube's volume, but to find surface area we need its length. So let's recover the edge. Volume of a cube is edge cubed, so the edge is the cube root of the volume, the cube root of 64, which is 4, since 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. Now join them. Setting to cubes end to end stretches only one direction, the length doubles from 4 to 8, while the width and depth stay 4. So we get a long box, 8 by 4 by 4. For a cuboid, surface area is 2 times the sum of the 3 distinct face areas, length breadth, breadth height, height length. The 2 times is because every face has an identical twin on the opposite side. Substitute our 8, 4 and 4, 8 times 4, plus 4 times 4, plus 4 times 8. Add inside the bracket, 32 plus 16 plus 32 is 80, then double for 160 square centimeters. Here's the combination idea again. In its simplest form, gluing the two cubes hides one square face on each, so two faces vanish from the surface. That's why the joint box, 160, has less skin than the two separate cubes did, 6 times 16 each, 192 total. Joining always hides the touching faces. It's a test tube shape, a tube with a rounded bottom. Because it's hollow, the surface we want is the inside skin, the wall plus the ball. Read the word hollow carefully. It tells us we want the inner surface, the skin a liquid inside would actually touch. Picture running your finger down the inside, the straight cylindrical wall, then the curved hemispherical ball at the bottom. So the inner surface is the cylinder's wall, 2 pi r h, plus the hemisphere's curved ball, 2 pi r squared. No top rim, the top is just an open mouth. The hemisphere's diameter is 14, so its radius is 7, and the cylinder is built on top of that same ball, so they share this radius of 7. The total height, 13, is measured to the bottom of the ball. The hemisphere's own depth equals its radius, 7, so the straight cylinder takes what's left, 13 minus 7, 6 centimeters. Compute the cylinder wall, to pi r h, with pi as 22/7, and notice the 7 cancels the 7 neatly, giving 264. Now the hemispherical ball, to pi r squared, again the 7 cancels, leaving 308 square centimeters. Add the wall and the ball for the total inner surface, 572 square centimeters. The takeaway, for a hollow vessel we count only the inner curved skin the contents touch, never a flat top rim, because the top is open. Always let the word hollow or inner steer you to the right faces. The classic ice cream shape, a cone slope above, a round scoop below. Same radius for both, so the circle between them is sealed inside. Look at the toy, a cone on top of a hemisphere, both the same width. The surface you can see and touch is the cone's curved slope plus the hemisphere's curved dome. The flat circle where they meet is buried at the joint, so it never appears, Total surface is pi r L plus 2 pi r squared. Both parts share the radius 3.5. The hemisphere's own height equals that radius, so the cone's height is the total 15.5 minus 3.5, which is 12. The cone's slope is painted, so we need its slant height, not the vertical 12. Pythagoras on radius 3.5 and height 12, square each, add, take the root, gives a clean 12.5. Cone curved surface is pi rl, radius 3.5 times slant 12.5, times pi as 22 over 7, 137.5. Hemisphere curved surface is 2 pi r squared, half a SVS 4 pi r squared, that comes to 77. Add the cone's slope and the hemisphere's dome for the total exposed surface, 214.5 square centimeters. The recurring lesson, because both parts share the same radius, the flat circle between them is perfectly hidden at the joint, so only the two curved surfaces show. Same radius joints always seal a circle away. How big can the dome be? Its circular base has to fit on the square face, so the widest it can stretch is edge to edge, spanning the whole face. First, the greatest diameter part. The dome's base is a circle sitting on the square top face. The largest circle that fits on a square spans the square edge to edge, so the biggest diameter equals the cube's edge, 7, which makes the radius 3.5. Now the surface, built the same way as the decorative block earlier. Start with the whole cube, then fix the dome on top. It hides a circle of the face, pi r squared, but exposes its curved dome, 2 pi r squared. Those 2 pi r squared terms combine, -1, +2, into a single +1 pi r squared. The same tidy shortcut as before. A dome on a flat face adds exactly 1 pi r squared. The cube's 6 square faces give 6 times 7 squared, 294 square centimeters. Add the 1 extra pi r squared for the exposed dome, 22 over 7 times 3.5 squared, which is 38.5. Sum them for 332.5 square centimeters. 2 ideas to carry. The largest hemisphere is limited by the very face it sits on, so its diameter can't beat the edge, and fixing a dome on a flat face adds just 1 pi r squared, the net of 1 hidden circle and 1 exposed dome. This time we scoop a ball into the cube instead of adding a bump, and with no numbers given, the answer stays as an expression in the edge L. Here's the lovely surprise of this problem. Scooping a hollow does exactly the same thing to the surface as sticking on a bump. Cutting the ball hides a flat circle on that face, so subtract pi r squared, but it opens a curved hollow you can now see into, so add its curved surface, to pi r squared. Same two moves as the dome. The diameter of the ball equals the cube's edge L, so its radius is half of that, L over 2. We keep everything symbolic since no numbers are given. Again the -1 and +2 pi r squared collapse to a single plus pi r squared. The depression, just like the bump, nets 1 pi r squared. Now put r as L over 2. Squaring it gives L squared over 4. Remember to square both the L and the 2. Tidy it up. Factor L squared over 4 out of both terms. 6L squared is 24 of those quarters, and we get L squared over 4 times 24 plus pi. The insight is a genuinely surprising one. A depression, like a bump, swaps one flat circle for one curved surface, so the algebra is identical to the dome case. Whether you scoop in or stick on, the surface changes by the same plus 1 pi r squared. A capsule is a tube with a rounded cap at each end, and here's the trick to spot. Those two half spheres, put together, make exactly one full sphere. Look at the capsule, a straight tube in the middle with a rounded hemispherical cap on each end. The surface is the cylinder's curved wall plus the two caps. And here's the beautiful shortcut. Two hemispheres of the same radius, joined, are exactly one whole sphere, so that two curved surfaces add up to 4 pi r squared. No flat circles anywhere, since the caps seal the tube's ends. The diameter is 5, so the shared radius of tube and caps is 2.5. The 14 mm length runs cap tip to cap tip. Each cap adds one radius of length beyond the tube, so the two caps eat 2 radii. 2 times 2.5, that's 5, leaving the cylinder's own length as 9. Cylinder wall is 2 pi r h, 2.5 times 9, times 2 pi as 22/7, about 141.4. The two caps together are one full sphere, 4 pi r squared, about 78.6. This is the whole payoff of spotting the sphere. Add the wall and the sphere worth of caps for about 220 square millimeters. Bang this pattern. Two hemispheres of the same radius always combine into exactly one sphere, so add their surfaces as a single 4 pi r squared rather than two separate 2 pi r squareds. It shows up again and again. Capsules, gulab jamuns, scooped logs. Think about a real tent before reaching for formulas. Canvas covers the walls and the roof, but never the ground you stand on. That single observation kills all the base circles. Let's reason from the real object. The canvas is only the cylinder's curved side wall plus the cone's curved roof. There's no canvas on the floor, that's bare ground, and none at the joint where the roof meets the wall. So we drop every base circle, just to pi r h plus pi r l. The diameter is 4, so the shared radius of wall and roof is 2. Cylinder wall is 2 pi r h, radius 2, height 2.1, times 2 pi as 22/7, 26.4 square meters. Cone roof is pi r l. Notice we are handed the slant height 2.8 directly, so no Pythagoras needed this time. Radius 2 times slant 2.8 times pi, 17.6. Add wall and roof for the canvas actually needed, 44 square meters. Finally the cost, area times the rate. 44 square meters at 500 rupees each is 22,000 rupees. The habit this rewards, always read the physical scene before choosing faces. A tent has no canvas floor and a sealed joint, so we count only wall and roof and drop every base circle. The situation, not a rote formula, tells you which surfaces are real. Drill a cone-shaped hole down into a solid cylinder. The top circle disappears, but the inside slope of that hole becomes a brand new surface you can now see. Let's track carefully what the drilling changes. After hollowing, 3 surfaces make up the solid: the cylinder's outer wall, still there, the bottom base, still a full circle, and the newly revealed inner slope of the cone-shaped hole. The top circle is gone. That's where we drilled in. So the surface is 2 pi r h plus pi r squared plus pi r L. The diameter is 1.4, so the radius is 0.7, and the cavity is drilled to the same radius and height as the cylinder. That inner cone surface needs its slant height, so Pythagoras on radius 0.7 and height 2.4 gives a tidy 2.5. Cylinder outer wall, 2 pi r h, that's 10.56. Here's the face-by-face care that matters. The top is drilled open so we do not count it, but the bottom base is untouched. Still a full circle, pi r squared, 1.54. And the new surface, the hollow cone's curved inside is now exposed skin, pi r L, 5.5 square centimeters. Add the three parts, wall, bottom, inner slope, 17.6, which rounds to about 18 square centimeters. The idea to keep hollowing out removes the top flat circle but reveals the cone's inner slope. One surface is lost and a different one is gained. So don't blindly add, walk face by face and ask what's still there and what's newly exposed. Two bowls carved into the two ends of a log, the walls stay, and each scooped end becomes a hemispherical hollow. The two hollows again make one sphere. Both flat ends of the cylinder are scooped away into bowls, so trace the surface. The cylinder's curved wall is still there, and at each end, in place of a flat circle, there's now a hemispherical hollow. So no flat circles survive at all, just the wall plus two hemispherical hollows. And two hemispheres of equal radius, as we keep seeing, make one whole sphere. The radius 3.5 and height 10 are given directly, shared by the cylinder and both hollows. Cylinder wall is 2 pi r h, 3.5 times 10. Times 2 pi as 22/7, a clean 220. The two hemispherical hollows together are one full sphere, 4 pi r squared, 154. Add the wall and the sphere worth of hollows for 374 square centimeters. The pattern once more. Scooping both ends removes two flat circles and adds two curved hollows, and those two hemispheres act as one full sphere. Whether the half spheres bulge out or cave in, 4 pi r squared captures them both. This one asks for the answer in terms of pi, so we keep pi as a symbol the whole way, and the reward is a beautifully clean multiple of pi. We're back to volumes, where the rule is friendly. The volume of a combination is just the sum of its pieces, no hidden faces to worry about. So the solid's volume is the cone's 1/3 pi r squared h plus the hemisphere's 2/3 pi r cubed. Both numbers are 1, the radius is 1, and the question says the cone's height equals its radius, so h is 1 too. The cone's volume, 1/3 pi r squared h, with everything 1, that's simply 1/3 pi. The hemisphere's volume, 2/3 pi r cubed, again with a 1, that's 2/3 pi. Add the 2/3 of pi, 1/3 plus 2/3 is 1 whole, so the volume is exactly pi cubic centimeters. Lovely and clean. The lesson: when a question says, in terms of pi, leave pi as a symbol and never plug in 3.14. The exact form is the required answer, and here the thirds add to a perfect single pi that a decimal would only hide. Picture a sharpened pencil, pointed at both ends, one tube with a cone tip on each end. The air inside is the tube plus the two cones. The air in the model is just the sum of its parts, the central cylinder plus the two identical cones on its ends. All three share the same radius, since the cones cap the tube perfectly. So volume is pi r squared h for the tube plus 2 times 1/3 pi r squared h for the cones. The diameter is 3, so the shared radius is 1.5. The total length is 12. Each cone is too long, and there are 2 of them, so together they take 4, leaving 8 for the cylinder in the middle. Cylinder volume is pi r squared times its height 8, about 56.57 cubic centimeters. The two cones together, 2 times 1/3 pi r squared times each cone's height 2, about 9.43. Small, because a cone holds only a third of its cylinder. Add the cylinder and the two cones for about 66 cubic centimeters of air. The habit to keep: when cones or caps share the tube's radius, their heights simply come off the total length first, so you get the cylinder's true length before computing anything. Split the length before you split the volume. A gulab jamun is a sweet capsule, a little tube with rounded ends. We'll find the syrup in 1, then feast our way up to 45. Each sweet is the capsule shape again, a cylinder with a hemisphere on each end. And 2 hemispheres of equal radius make one whole sphere, so one piece is simply a cylinder plus a sphere, pi r squared h plus 4/3 pi r cubed. Let's nail one piece first, then scale up. The diameter is 2.8, so the radius is 1.4. The total length is 5. Each rounded end sticks out by 1 radius, so the two ends take 2 radii. 2 times 1.4 is 2.8, leaving the cylinder's own length as 2.2. Put it together. Cylinder pi r squared h plus sphere 4/3 pi r cubed, and 1 gulab jamun is about 25.05 cubic centimeters. Now scale to the whole plate, 45 pieces, so multiply by 45, about 1,127 cubic centimeters of sweet in total. But only 30% of each is syrup. So take 30% of that total, about 338 cubic centimeters of syrup. The clean 3-move recipe for any, how much across many items problem: solve for 1, scale to many, then take the required fraction or percentage. Keep those 3 moves separate and the arithmetic never tangles. The question asks for the wood, the material that stays. So start with the full solid block, then drill out the 4 little cone-shaped holes and subtract them. Read the question's real demand, the volume of wood, meaning the material that remains after the holes are drilled. So the plan is the whole cuboid block minus the 4 conical depressions carved out of it. Wood kept equals block minus holes. The block is a plain cuboid, length times breadth times height, 15 by 10 by 3.5, 525 cubic centimeters of solid wood before drilling. Each depression is a cone, and its volume is 1/3 pi r squared times its depth, radius 0.5, depth 1.4, about 0.37 cubic centimeters. Tiny holes. There are 4 identical holes, so multiply by 4, about 1.47 cubic centimeters of wood removed in all. Subtract the drilled out cones from the block for the wood that remains, about 523.5 cubic centimeters. The takeaway: volume of material or volume of wood means the solid you keep, not the holes. So always start from the full block and subtract every hollow you carve out. The question is asking what's left, not what's gone. Here's the physics that unlocks it. Each shot dropped in shoves out exactly its own volume of water. So the water that spilled tells us the total volume of the shots. The key idea is displacement. When a solid sinks into a full vessel, it pushes out exactly its own volume of water. So the water that overflowed equals the total volume of all the lead shots together. And the overflow is 1/4 of the cone. So n shots volume equals 1/4 of the cone. The vessel is a cone, volume 1/3 pi r squared h, radius 5, height 8, which is 200/3 times pi. We keep pi symbolic, it's about to cancel. 1/4 of that cone spills out, a quarter of 200/3 pi is 50/3 pi. That's the total spilled water. One lead shot is a tiny sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed, with radius 0.5, which comes to 1/6 pi. To find how many shots, divide the spilled water by one shot's volume. Watch the pi cancel top and bottom. That's why we never plugged in a decimal. Simplify. 50/3 divided by 1/6 is 50/3 times 6, and we get exactly 100 shots. The principle to carry forward: displaced water equals submerged volume, so counting sunk objects becomes a simple volume division. And because both volumes carry pi, it always cancels. Leave pi as a symbol and let it disappear. Two cylinders of iron stacked, a fat one below and a thinner one above. Mass is a two-step job. Get the volume, then weigh it using the density. Mass problems have a clean shape. First find the total volume of the solid, then multiply by density, the grams packed into each cubic centimeter. So step 1 is the volume, which is the two cylinders simply added, each pi r squared h. The lower cylinder's diameter is 24, so its radius is 12, and its height is 220. Lower cylinder volume, pi r squared h with pi 3.14, 99,475.2 cubic centimeters. Upper cylinder volume, radius 8, height 60, 12,057.6. Add the two for the whole iron volume, 111,532.8 cubic centimeters. Now step 2, the weighing. Each cubic centimeter is about 8 grams, so mass is volume times 8. That's 892,000 grams and change. Finally convert grams to kilograms by dividing by 1,000, about 892.26 kilograms. The recipe for any mass question: first get the full volume of the combined solid, then multiply once by density, and save the unit conversion for the very last step. Volume, then weight, then tidy the units. Lower the whole cone and hemisphere solid into a brimful tank. It shoves out its own volume of water. Whatever water stays behind is tank minus solid. Displacement again. The solid, once fully in, occupies its own volume of the tank, pushing that much water out over the top. So the water remaining is simply the cylinder's volume minus the solid's volume. and the solid is a cone plus a hemisphere. The tank's volume is pi r squared h, radius 60, height 180. We keep pi as a symbol, since these numbers stay tidy that way, 648,000 pi. Cone volume is 1/3 pi r squared h, radius 60, height 120, 144,000 pi. Hemisphere volume is 2/3 pi r cubed, with a 60, that also comes to 144,000 pi. A neat coincidence that they match. Add the two for the whole solid, 288,000 pi. Subtract the solid from the tank, 648,000 minus 288,000, 360,000 pi cubic centimeters of water left. Only now put pi as 22/7 for an actual number, then divide down into cubic meters, about 1.131 cubic meters. The idea, seen a third time, a submerged solid removes water equal to its own volume, so the leftover is just tank minus solid. And a practical tip, keep pi symbolic right up to the last step so the arithmetic stays clean, then substitute ones at the end. A round flask with a thin neck, a bulb plus a tube. To check the child's claim, we compute the true volume ourselves and see whether it matches her 345. The word check is the instruction here. We must compute the real volume ourselves and then compare with the child's answer. The flask is a cylindrical neck plus a spherical bulb, a full sphere this time, not a hemisphere. So the true volume is pi r squared h for the neck plus 4/3 pi r cubed for the sphere. Two different radii here, so keep them apart. The neck's diameter is 2, so its radius is 1, and its length is 8. The spherical part's diameter is 8.5, so its radius is 4.25, much fatter than the neck, which is why the bulb dominates the volume. Neck volume is pi r squared h, radius 1 squared, times 8, times pi 3.14, a modest 25.12. Sphere volume is 4/3 pi r cubed, 4.25 cube is the big driver, about 321.39. Add the neck and the bulb for the true volume, about 346.5 cubic centimeters. Now the verdict. Our true value, 346.5, does not match the child's 345, close, but off by about 1.5, so she is not correct. The lesson for any check whether question. Never just eyeball it. Compute the exact value yourself and compare honestly. Here the real volume is about 346.5, not 345, so the claim fails. Let's lock everything in with exam-style questions before you go. I won't just point at the right option. For each one we'll reason out why it's right and, just as importantly, why the tempting wrong options are traps. That's exactly how you want to think in the exam hall, not recognizing an answer, but earning it. Picture it before you compute. Two hemispheres pressed flat face to flat face rebuild one complete sphere, so the answer must be the sphere's surface. Watch out for the trap of adding to separate curved surfaces. Consider the four options. The two flat faces are pressed together and sealed inside, so they vanish from the surface. What's left is a complete sphere, whose surface area is 4 pi r squared, option C. Here's why the traps catch people. 2 pi r squared is just one hemisphere's curved part. 3 pi r squared is a hemisphere's total surface, curved plus its flat circle, which forgets that the flat circle is now hidden. And 6 pi r squared double counts by adding to full hemisphere totals without dropping the two joint faces. Rebuild the sphere and you avoid all three. The trick is to write all three volumes over the same building block, pi r cubed, so only the fractions remain to compare. Since the height equals r, watch the cones and cylinders r squared times h both become r cubed. Consider the four options. Let's write each over pi r cubed. The cone is 1/3 pi r squared times height r, which is 1/3 pi r cubed. The hemisphere is 2/3 pi r cubed. The cylinder is pi r squared times r, a full pi r cubed. So the fractions are 1/3, 2/3, and 1. Multiply all 3 by 3 to clear the denominators and you get 1 to 2 to 3. Option A. The other options just shuffle those same three numbers into the wrong order, so the safeguard is to keep cone, hemisphere, cylinder in that stated sequence. First ask how big that sphere can be. The largest sphere just kisses all 6 faces of the cube, so its diameter equals the edge A, making the radius over 2. Then be careful cubing that half. Consider the four options. The biggest sphere touches all 6 faces, so its diameter is the edge A and its radius is over 2. Now the sphere's volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. Cubing over 2 gives a cubed over 8. Students often forget the 8, so we have 4/3 times pi times a cubed over 8, and 4 over 3 over 8 simplifies to 1 over 6. That's pi r cubed over 6, option A. The trap option 4/3 pi r cubed is what you'd get if you used the whole edge as the radius instead of half, the other to come from me's cubing. Equal bases, equal volumes, so set the cone's volume equal to the hemispheres and solve for h. Watch how nearly everything cancels, leaving a clean relationship between h and r. Consider the four options. Set 1/3 pi r squared h equal to 2/3 pi r cubed. The pi cancels on both sides, and one factor of r squared cancels too, leaving 1/3 h equals 2/3 r. Multiply both sides by 3 and h equals to r, so the height to radius ratio is 2 to 1. Option B. Don't fall for 1 to 2, which is that ratio flipped upside down. Always double check which quantity the question put first. The magic word is recast. Melting and reshaping never changes the amount of metal, so the volume is conserved. Set the sphere's volume equal to the cones and solve for the new height. Consider the four options. Because melting conserves volume, the sphere and the new cone hold the same amount of metal. 4/3 pi r cubed equals 1/3 pi r squared h. Cancel pi, cancel one factor of r squared, and multiply through by 3. 4r equals h. So the cone stands 4 times as tall as its radius, option D. It makes sense. A cone of the same base radius is a lean shape, so it must reach up high to store the whole fat sphere's worth of metal. For assertion reason, work in 3 careful steps. Is the assertion true? Is the reason true on its own? And does the reason actually explain the assertion? Judge each before you pick a letter. Which option is correct? Take the assertion first. Is the combined surface not simply the sum of the two totals? Yes, that's true. We saw it all through the chapter. Now the reason. When two solids join, the touching faces get sealed inside and stop being surface. Also true. And does that reason explain the assertion? Precisely. It's the very reason the totals don't just add. So both are true and the reason correctly explains the assertion, which is option A. Whenever a claim and its cause line up this cleanly, A is your answer. This one is a deliberate trap that tests whether you know volume and surface behave completely differently. Judge each statement on its own. Don't let a true assertion tempt you into assuming the reason is true too. Which option is correct? The assertion says volumes of a combination just add up. That's genuinely true. Space simply combines, with no hidden phase subtlety, so the assertion stands. But the reason claims surface areas also add. That's false, and it's the whole trap. Surfaces do not add, because the joint faces are hidden inside. So we have a true assertion but a false reason, which is option C. The lesson worth carrying into the exam: volumes add, surfaces don't. Never let those two rules blur together. An ice cream is our familiar combined solid, a cone below with a rounded hemispherical scoop on top, both the same radius. Because this is a volume question, we just find how much each part holds and add them, no hidden faces to worry about. Let's work the three parts in turn. The scoop on top is a hemisphere, so its volume is 2/3 pi r cubed, half of a full sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. The radius is 3.5, and remember to cube it, not square it. 2/3 pi r cubed, with r cubed as 3.5 cubed, gives about 89.8 cubic centimeters of ice cream in the scoop. The cone below uses 1/3 pi r squared h, that 1/3 is the pouring fact, a cone being a third of its cylinder. Here r is 3.5 and the height is 12. 1/3 pi r squared h works out to exactly 154 cubic centimeters in the cone. For the whole treat, remember the golden rule of volumes: for a combination they simply add, with no faces to subtract. So we sum the scoop and the cone. Adding the scoop's 89.8 and the cone's 154 gives about 243.8 cubic centimeters of ice cream in all. It's the very same toy we found the surface area of back in exercise 12.1, but now the question flips to volume, how much it holds rather than its skin. Watch how the hidden face worry disappears entirely. For volume we just add the pieces, the cone plus the hemisphere, sharing the radius 3.5. Notice we don't care about the join at all. Volumes combine with no faces to subtract. The hemisphere's own height equals its radius 3.5, so the cone's height is the total 15.5 minus that, 12 centimeters. Cone volume is 1/3 pi r squared h, that 1/3 being the pouring fact, and it comes to 154. Hemisphere volume is 2/3 pi r cubed, half a sphere's worth, about 89.8. Add the two pieces for the toy's total volume, about 243.8 cubic centimeters. The insight worth underlining: the exact same combined solid can be asked as a surface area question or a volume question, and they're worlds apart. For surface you fret over hidden faces, for volume you simply add the parts. Always check which one the exam is asking. The capsule shape once more, a tube with a rounded cap at each end. Spot the shortcut early. Those two equal caps rebuild one full sphere, so a three-piece solid collapses to two clean terms. The volume is the cylinder plus two hemispheres, but two hemispheres of equal radius are exactly one whole sphere, So we write it as a cylinder plus a single sphere, pi r squared h plus 4/3 pi r cubed. The radius 3.5 and the cylinder's height 10 are handed to us directly, both shared with the caps. Cylinder volume is pi r squared h, 3.5 squared times 10, times pi as 22/7, a tidy 385. The two caps together are one full sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed, about 179.7. Add the tube and the sphere worth of caps for the total, about 564.7 cubic centimeters. The habit to reward, recognizing the two equal caps as one sphere turns a three-part sum into a clean two-term formula. Spot the sphere hiding in every capsule and your working shrinks by a third. The word melted is the whole key. Melting rearranges the metal but never destroys any, so the total volume is unchanged. That turns the problem into cone volume shared out over one little sphere. Recasting conserves volume. The metal that was one cone becomes many spheres, same total amount. So the number of spheres is simply the cone's volume divided by one sphere's volume. The cone's volume is 1/3 pi r squared h, radius 6, height 24, which is 288 pi. We keep pi symbolic, it's going to cancel. One small sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed with radius 1, just 4/3 pi. Simplify, 288 divided by 4/3 is 288 times 3/4, and we get 216 spheres. The principle for every melt and recast problem, the total volume stays fixed no matter the new shape, so counting the new pieces is always old volume divided by one new piece, a single division in which pi reliably cancels. Spot, melted, or recast, and read straight for conservation of volume. Before the exam, let's lock in everything from this chapter, but not as a bare list to cram. For each formula I'll remind you in a line where it comes from, so it stays anchored to a picture rather than floating loose in memory. We'll gather the volume formulas, the surface area formulas, the smart shortcuts, the traps that cost marks, and a memory hook ought to seal it all. Start with the volumes, each tied to a picture. A cube is h cubed, length times breadth times height with all three equal. A cuboid is just that in general, length times breadth times height, the floor area lifted through the height. A cylinder is pi r squared h, the circular floor pi r squared, again lifted through the height. A cone is exactly 1/3 of that, 1/3 pi r squared h, and remember why, 3 conefuls filled one cylinder when we poured. A sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed, and a hemisphere, being half a sphere, is half of that, 2/3 pi r cubed. Now the surfaces, and remember every one is just a flattened net. A cylinder's curved surface is 2 pi r h, that's the label unrolled into a rectangle, circumference 2 pi r wide by height h tall. Add the two circular ends and the total is 2 pi r times r plus h. A cone uses the slant height L, not the vertical h, because the skin runs down the slope, and L is the square root of r squared plus h squared, straight from Pythagoras on the triangle inside the cone. Its curved surface is pi r L, total pi r times r plus L. A sphere's surface is 4 pi r squared. A hemisphere's curved part is half of that, 2 pi r squared, and adding its flat circle pi r squared makes 3 pi r squared in total. Here's the single most important idea for combinations. When two solids are joined, never just add their total surface areas. Add only the faces you can actually see from outside, the ones a paintbrush could reach. The circles or faces where the two solids meet are pressed together and buried inside, so they stop being skin and simply disappear from the surface. Always pause and ask, which faces are exposed? For any melt and recast or displacement problem, hang everything on one idea: the volume is conserved. Melting reshapes the metal but never destroys any, and a sunk object pushes out exactly its own volume of water, so in both cases the amount of stuff is unchanged. Set the old volume equal to the new volume and solve. Because both sides carry pi, it cancels almost every time, so leave pi as a symbol and let the numbers stay clean. Whenever a cone surface is involved, find the slant height first, the square root of r squared plus h squared. Why does that root appear? Picture the right triangle inside the cone, vertical height one leg, base radius the other, and the slope is the hypotenuse, so Pythagoras hands you L. The surface formulas need that slant height L, because the skin runs along the slope, only the volume uses the straight vertical height h. Compute L before you touch any surface formula. The most common cone slip in the whole chapter, putting the vertical height straight into a surface formula. It feels right because h is the number you're given, but surfaces always use the slant height L. The paint travels down the slope, not the middle. The vertical height h belongs only in the volume, 1/3 pi r squared h. Mix them up and every surface mark is lost. Another trap that quietly loses marks, adding the two full surface areas of a combined solid. That secretly double counts the two faces at the join, faces that are actually hidden inside and shouldn't be there at all. Leave those joined faces out and add only what's exposed to the outside. The combined surface is always less than the two separate totals, never their simple sum. Here's a memory hook worth its weight in marks. A cone is 1/3 of its cylinder. Same base, same height, the cone holds exactly 1/3 of what the cylinder does, which is precisely what we saw when 3 conefuls of water filled one cylinder. Picture that pouring and the 1/3 and 1/3 pi r squared h never goes missing. And one more, made for cones. Surface uses slant, volume uses height. Say it out loud once and you'll never mix up L and H again. The skin runs down the slant, so surfaces need L. The filling stacks up the vertical, so volume needs H, skin slant, filling height. In 60 seconds, the whole chapter. Volumes. A cube is a cubed, a cuboid is LBH, a cylinder is pi r squared h, and a cone is 1/3 of that from the 3 pores. A sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed and a hemisphere is half a sphere, 2/3 pi r cubed. Surfaces are just unrolled nets, and cone surfaces use the slant height L, the square root of r squared plus h squared, never the vertical h. For a combination, add only the exposed faces, because the joined ones are hidden inside. And melting, recasting, or immersing always conserves the volume, with pi cancelling. Hold those pictures, not just the symbols, and you're exam ready.